Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Juju Show, episode 40. We've now reached middle age, and we have a fun show with a few extra guests this week to show everyone. So let's go around. Corey, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Corey. I'm on the OpenStack team. I'm mostly on the distro side of things, but help enable the payloads for the charms. Yeah.
Oh, so when all those little PPAs are populated with the goodness, that's your stuff, huh?
Yeah, the Cloud Archive.
There you go.
The main thing.
Cool. And David, you've been here before. You're here to show off some awesome charming stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. David Ames on the OpenStack charm engineering team. So working on the charms that deploy and manage the lifecycle of OpenStack.
Sweet. James, you're no stranger. How you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? James from People Data Labs here. Just along for the ride.
Filing bugs like always, watching my commits go by. I see how it is. Joe, welcome back again from representing Juju Core. So file all your bugs at Joe. Remember, you file.
Hey guys.
And Kevin, are you here to laugh and make fun of the fact that I can't set up a Hangout link on time?
Hey, almost 10 minutes in. I expected nothing less.
You'd think by 40 we'd have figured it out, right? But I think it's what we said back in the 20s. So maybe by the 60s, I'll have figured out how to hit the buttons and do this right. So since we're getting a late start, let's crank through. We have some community news. Woo! And we're going to start off with a callback to the last Juju Show episode where James showed off a AWS load balance layer he had to help enable charms to be able to reach out and manage things, manage load balancing across web applications. And it looks like, BD, you've submitted a nice discourse post that walks through what it is, how you use it, and has some good notes and stuff. Looking for some folks to provide some feedback.
Totally. Yeah, actually just updated that post a little bit as well to give a further insight into some of the pieces where either I had some trouble making design decisions and or wanted feedback. So, you know, everyone doesn't have to actually read through the code now. You could maybe get a better high-level overview from the further description that I wrote.
Did an engineer add documentation? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm trying, baby.
Oh, there we go. All right. I would like to hear that and celebrate that. So everyone, if you're interested in AWS load ELB support and how you can work that in your workloads and your charms, go check out BD's post and his layer. And I love this kind of stuff because it's like good old-fashioned shared open source operations, right? So BD's done a lot of the hard work. Now you can jump in and reap the rewards. Ha, 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 ha. Speaking of cool, charming things, there was a post from Paul over on RI's side. They have updated the NTP charm and made it all modern charmy with the reactive framework and added crony support. And I think just the other day, we were all trying to get something to work and it wouldn't work. And it turned out that because we had VMs coming up without proper time support, basically they were all out of sync and out of date. And therefore SSL validation went to hell in a handbasket. And so our answer was, have you run NTP update on there? And so if you're running your production infrastructure, this NTP charm is probably something you want to run on all your systems to keep everything running smoothly and having all of your time across your data center synced up nicely so that you don't run into any of these kinds of issues. So good to see those kind of fundamental charms and things being updated. What do you guys have the NTP charm in the OpenStack? You run it in production, but not part of the default setup or what?
Yeah, that's a part of the foundation, Canonical Foundation cloud. So NTP is definitely an integral part.
Use it, love it, live it. And another kind of charming thing, there's a charm snap for the charm command that you use to publish to the store and such. And Corey put up a post about how they're switching back to the classic confinement. And I'm guessing something triggered the need to go back to classic versus being fully confined. And I'll be honest, I don't know for sure what it is. Do you know, Kevin?
I do.
What's the history? Give me a lesson.
Yeah, so it turns out with a strictly confined snap, you may not always be able to build snaps outside of allowed directories, right? So if you're outside of your home directory, charm build won't allow you to write to certain locations on the file system. And then the more overarching principle is just that build tools are classic. I don't know of a better blanket way to say it, but because they touch so many parts of the file system, maybe they have external dependencies that they're working with. Just makes more sense for build tools to be classic, whereas your user-facing applications, you know, those are the strict ones. But the build infra, it's just a nightmare to try to confine everything when it may need to read outside certain locations.
I can confirm that we've run into that with some test harnesses having to work around the fact that we couldn't build the charm outside of a home directory. So
yeah, Jenkins,
good call.
Jenkins is a huge one, right? So when you build something in Jenkins, it's out in varlib Jenkins somewhere, which is not in the home interface that a strict snap may access.
I see what you mean.
Your CI is building charms.
Which everyone should be doing, right? You're testing your charm and passing tests and then building and then uploading and publishing straight from there, right? Right. Edge channel in the store. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that's good to know. And thank you for the background. That makes total sense now that you say that out loud. And I probably should have read that before the show in order to know that myself.
Let me give you one other piece of TLDR. Yeah. If you're already on the strict snap, which a lot of us are, it will refresh to that will display a warning now. And it'll say, hey, look, you're on the strict snap, you need to refresh to the classic version to continue to get updates.
It's a bit of end of the line, huh? You're not going to get any more magical auto-updating charm.
Yeah, well, so I don't know the full technical details of why a strict snap can't refresh to a classic snap, but automatically. But I do know that it's a two-step process to get on the gravy train again.
Well, no, it makes sense. If you install something and you think it's secured into a box and then it wants to escape that box, it makes sense that it has to ask pretty please.
Yeah, so you'll see just do what the computer tells you to do. You'll be fine.
That's what I find that's the best thing in life. I just do what my computer tells me to do. It's worked out so far. So your computer tells you to update any of your Juju 2.3 installs to 2.3.9. There is a new release one out for the 2.3.9, and it has basically a bunch of bug fixes in it. And what will be good is that we're going to have a 2.4 release coming next week that will include forward ports of any of that 2.3.9 stuff. So for instance, if you were waiting for instance types updates in 2.4 land, those are coming next week. So we're going to lock down a build and get it through QA this week so that can get out. So keep an eye out and always update your controllers. I mind meld you into updating your stuff. So that's the releasing stuff. One thing I'm going to drop a hint for all the people, because it's just us here, just it's a little private group here. We're actually looking at trying to lock up 2.5 in the near future. So not this month, but next month, be on the lookout for starting to get released betas of 2.5 and getting to RCs and getting that out the door. So if you haven't played with the 2.5 and the Edge Snap, I remind you it's very easy, and you can even switch back and forth from the Edge to the stable and back and forth using the snap refresh command in like one line. So it's very easy to play with. Start trying it out and giving feedback, because we want the feedback. We love it. Right, Joe?
We do.
Speaking of Joe and 2.5 and feedback, you have a great post where we're trying to help figure out all the ways folks should set up their bridging and networking in order to do LXD clustering with 2.5 in a nice way. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we recently made LXD clustering available. So now the neat thing about that is it makes the LXD provider less of a sort of a testing ground that people only use in their local machine into a genuine player. So at the moment, all the happy path scenarios where we demonstrated that were all on MAS and using the MAS interface to create a bridge network that LXD can use when you init it. But it's got such potential, LXD clustering. So if you've got some machines, you can join them into a cluster and get very high density deployment with Juju across those, or even without Juju, if you just want to spin up containers. But so we're trying to get all the scenarios where you might manually bridge manually set up your bridging. So I started writing a post on that. There's a couple of successful scenarios there, a couple that I have to work out, and I don't know if it's a symptom of Rick's Maz or just me, but I have managed to lock myself out of the machines a couple of times, mucking about with the network as happened.
I'm kicking you out, Joe. Get out of my Maz. No. But obviously, we want, when the containers come up, you want them to have network connectivity out to the world. If they need to get packages and things, or if you want to have web apps and things in your cluster, how do you get into them? And because there's containers and potentially lots and lots of, you know, machines on each of your nodes in your cluster, the networking setup is pretty vital, and impacts what you can and can't do, right? Like, what does Juju expose mean in a LXD cluster world? I don't know. It's, you know, you got to have networking into a thing. So there's lots of ways you can set things up depending on what you want to do. And so we're trying to help document those things and encourage folks to play with and test it and try it out on your own, you know, clustering setups where it might be useful. Be it, I want to take, you know, the Maz one I think is interesting in that I've got big machines in Maz and I want to throw lots of hardware at it, but I don't need a, I shouldn't say this with the OpenStack guys here. I don't need a full OpenStack control plane. Cough, cough. Maybe setting up a LXD cluster with those machines in Maz is a great way for me to run failover HA dense workloads and so on, right? Or even just, I've got a few old machines in the closet that I wish I could use for something interesting. Setting up a LXD cluster on there and allowing you to really throw VMs at it from across the network. It's another really cool way to play around with it.
Now, if you really knew your buzzwords, you'd use the word edge.
Oh, I failed.
There you go.
Yeah. So, right, because at the edge, you've got a small half rack or something of machines. And again, I don't want the overhead of a full cloud, you know, system. What would I call it? Full, I don't know. We'll call it running a full cloud over there on my edge. Right. LXD cluster is a great way to go about that. But again, you'd have to make sure you figure out how you're setting up your networking so that whatever workloads you're putting out there can still be useful. It's no help if you can deploy things, but then they can't actually do anything. So awesome. All right. Thanks, Joe. Everyone, please jump on that and try it out. And the other thing, Joe, that you've been participating in, mainly as an awesome code review person, is the Oracle Cloud stuff. That's landed, right? Did I see the merge go through today? I believe
7 of 7 landed just minutes ago. So there is also a discourse post on that, and the completed features there are the storage provision. So you can use all your Juju storage options with that. It was quite a big piece of work because it includes some fundamental additions to Juju that allow setup to be done on the actual machine when it has to issue some instructions to the provider itself in order to connect drives. So that was quite a long process. Gabriel has done some great work there, and
he's our
we're
hero.
keen to have people use it and poke at it ourselves and see what.
So if you're interested at all, Oracle's got basically a V2 cloud that you can use, and if you're interested in playing with that, if you've got access, if your company uses them for things, you know, you can reach out and use Juju on there just like you would anywhere else you can use Juju. So give it a try and bang on it, and gives you one more place you can use Juju on top of OpenStack and Maz and LXD and AWS and GCE and Azure and more. Sorry. I should need to get like a rhyme out of all that so that you can like tell like a quick little rhyming thing with all the provider places you can use your Juju. And that's the news. Anyone have anything else of news before we reach out and ask these OpenStack folks what cool stuff they have available? No. All right. All the news that's fit to discourse has already been discoursed. Great. So Corey, David, I hear you had a new release recently. Can you tell me something shiny about your new release?
Sure. Maybe I'll just give a quick overview from a distro point of view, and then we can move on to the charms. All right. So Rocky is the recent release of OpenStack. It's the 18th release of OpenStack. As people may or may not know, we backport every OpenStack release to the most recent Ubuntu LTS release. And we do that via the Ubuntu Cloud Archive. Among other things, this makes upgrades easier for upgrading from one release to another on LTS deployments. So for Rocky, we've made that available. Rocky comes by default in Ubuntu Cosmic, which releases next month. But we make it available to Bionic, which is our most recent LTS, via the Cloud Archive. So that's been available since just days after Upstream Rocky released. And then obviously, again, Cosmic's releasing next month. And then we'll soon be moving on to Stein, which is the next release of OpenStack. So the Cloud Archive has about 50 core OpenStack packages plus all the required dependencies. Among those, obviously, it's all of Rocky. We have Ceph. We have the latest releases of Ceph and Open vSwitch, Ceph Mimic and Open vSwitch 2.10.0. Another highlight is that we have an Octavia package in Rocky. This was basically the old load balancing as a service project. It's been consolidated and moved into an Octavia project. And so that's another thing that we might be adding some support charm-wise in the near future for.
Oh, is this the one that's going to leverage the upcoming LXD profile feature? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
I'm not certain that that's the case or not on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then one other thing, from a distro point of view, OpenStack has been pretty slow to move to Python 3. Python 2.7, as most people probably know, is got about slightly over a year until it's done. And so from a distro point of view, pretty soon it's going to be moved to Universe, and that means it doesn't get any security updates. So in this cycle, we spent a lot of time adding Python 3 support to distro-wise to the packages. Rocky is still Python 2.7 by default when you install packages in Rocky, but the Python 3 packages are available. And then we're very likely going to be switching in the next release in Stein to Python 3 by default. And so one of the things we're doing right now is moving our charms over to using those Python 3 packages. So there's kind of two aspects to that. The actual charm itself, we're moving those to Python 3, and then the actual payload of OpenStack that the charm deploys, we're moving that to Python 3 as of Rocky. Prior releases, if you deploy prior releases, they'll remain as Python 2.11.
Is that something I can easily test out with, like, if I had test infrastructure for this, that I could tweak a setting in a bundle for the applications and see, does my current like cloud setup work and operate in a Rocky world in Python 3, or is it more work to be done before?
As far as the payload goes, it's going to be a hard switch as soon as you deploy Rocky. But we do have support for upgrades. So if you're upgrading from Queens to Rocky, the charms will switch you from Python 2 to Python 3.
If you tell them to.
No, it's just,
no?
It is, yeah.
So Rocky's Python 3 on the payloads then?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I misunderstood you there.
So this will be, this will be in the October release. Or is it November or October, David?
November.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's some big lots of code changing coming like a freight train, huh?
Yeah.
Which is good, because obviously you don't want to run your OpenStack on a Python release that is end of lifed without support. So it's a good time to get at it for sure. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Is there any particular interesting, besides the load balancing tooling there, that's kind of new or interesting? Or is it pretty much we're basically rewriting it all to Python 3 and that's big enough for now?
Yeah, I mean, from the upstream point of view, I mean, there's always new things coming down the pipe. Particularly, upgrades are always difficult difficult, right? So upstream's always adding new support for making upgrades easier and minimizing downtime. They're like for example, in Rocky, there's updates to Neutron and Nova to help minimize downtime with wide migration. Another thing is cells. There's always improvements to cells and hardening of cells. That's Cells V2 is a newer-ish feature in OpenStack, and obviously any hardening of that support to make that better is really desirable coming down the pipeline.
And Cells is that ability to kind of namespace out a region in a cloud and really scale it out beyond.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what was the number I heard? Something 100?
Well, yeah, right. What's the limit?
We typically talk about around 200 to 250 compute nodes, and you start to have pain on the data plane to your database, your RabbitMQ, that kind of thing.
And so cells is the thing to help you get past that. So improvements to cells is a big deal for those of us, for folks growing out their cloud. So that's good to hear. Cool. Well, I don't know, David, what have you guys been playing with on the charm stuff then? I mean, obviously an upgrade path that involves a Python switch underneath the hood when a lot of the charms themselves are using Python. That sounds like a party.
Yeah, lots of fun. Yeah. First, I just because we haven't been on in a long time, I did provide several links on the Discord's page for today's show, including our deployment guide and our development guide if you want to participate in writing OpenStack charms or fixing a bug, what have you. And then the last link that I added there was just our release notes. And those are actually a font of information. They are not as boring as they sound. If you go take a peek at those, you'll see kind of all the new things we've done over the last couple of years. I am going to go back to Queens, just include Queens and Rocky here, and just say that one of the major changes is just kind of the deprecation of older APIs. So in Queens, we deprecated entirely Keystone v2. So you are forced to move to Keystone v3, which gives you all the domain goodness that also allows you to do things like have an LDAP backend as a domain. And this is a really good thing, but what we find is that, for people that are running older releases, these are major upgrade hurdles that they have to overcome. Another one of Rocky is the deprecation of UUID tokens. We were a bit late to the game, I have to admit, in implementing Fairnet tokens, but we have that in the Rocky release. Fairnet tokens are a lot more efficient. You don't wind up with a 5 gig MySQL database with token information that just needs to be cleaned out. So it's a vast improvement there. And then the other one is the Glance version 1 deprecation. Glance v2 has been around forever. In fact, I don't even remember which release that came out. We've supported it since then. But as those things are, you probably have scripts that are creating images somewhere that maybe they use the Glance v1. When you go to Rocky, you no longer have that choice. I want to highlight a couple of new charms that we have.
Can I ask you a second, though? So you talked about some kind of upgrade and potential pains or whatnot in the upgrade. Yeah. And I wonder, though, I know that our charms do a really good job of kind of wrapping some of the complexity around upgrading and helping provide folks on a guided path. Can you talk a little bit about some of the, like when you talk about that there's these kind of upgrade pains moving from like a V2 to a V3, how much of that we can help the users with the charms and how much it's on them to kind of like, is it going to cause them to have to go out and basically everyone's got to go have a re-login day, like a new password day situations when you update the cloud or how that kind of works, like, how much of that are we handling versus how much is still left?
Right. So definitely the charms are handling the upgrade of OpenStack itself. I do think that when we jump from UUID to Fairnet token, you will have a re-login day. The reference really I'm making is all of the supportive scripts that people tend to have laying around. It's surprisingly painful when you realize how many places you have made assumptions about a particular API version. But yeah, the charms will do the upgrade of OpenStack itself. You will have a functional cloud after an upgrade. So.
No, awesome. I know we do a lot of upgrade testing and stuff with those things, and so I just want to highlight that it's not all on the operator to have to get the cloud updated. But like you say, once you have your cloud, you tend to build up a lot of tools that assume things about the cloud.
Exactly.
When you update it. Turns out if you move from, say, I don't know, one startup system to another, you have to update scripts and things, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Sorry. So you want to talk about the new charms?
A few new charms, yeah. So the big one, I think, is the Vault, HashiCorp Vault's secrets manager. This is a tool where you can use to securely store things like SSL certificates, TLS certificates, secrets of various kinds. The way that we are leveraging it is to implement encryption at rest. So the Swift and the Ceph charms now will allow you to do encryption at rest, and they leverage Vault to store their encryption keys. Vault is really quite secure in that if someone tries to restart it without the main key that opens up Vault, it just locks itself down. So it's very resilient to attack. So we have got plans, I think, to continue to use Vault. I think it'll become a part of our foundation cloud as well. So.
I love this. My favorite story about this is I had never thought about this, but evidently using these keys and Vault basically allows you to do things like, say someone walks into your data center, grabs a hard drive out of your server and walks away with it and plugs it in somewhere else. The data that's on that's all encrypted, and because they don't have access and they don't have all the rest of the key infrastructure around in that cloud, they can't go read that data somewhere else.
That is correct.
I never thought about, hey, Joe coming in grabbing this out of my server. Now I'm very paranoid about any servers that I put up in racks anymore.
So, if you work for the CIA, this is important to you.
Yeah, no, it turns out, no, I know that there's a lot of various, what's the right phrasing for like the security, certifications or things you may have to get from medical purposes to government purposes or whatever, right? This is a key requirement for that kind of stuff. So it's good to know that if you're, using the charms to put together a cloud for any of those types of organizations where you have those strict requirements, that the logic's baked in now. So, you don't have to, there's a nice guided path instead of having to string all the wires together yourself again. That's right. So that's really cool.
Let's see. Another one, this was a release or two ago, but I'll just bring up here that Naki, we support the Naki service, which basically is your time metrics. It integrates with Ceilometer, and it means you no longer have to use MongoDB as a backend for Ceilometer. So Naki is definitely an important new charm. We also have the Neutron dynamic routing charm, which allows you to advertise your tenant or project networks out into a BGP cloud. This is a big deal, I think, for telcos. So you can seamlessly integrate into an existing BGP network.
This is kind of stuff where you would set up like VPN endpoints for customers and stuff and give them private networks in a telco scenario.
Yeah, well, also just if you have you're doing workloads within OpenStack and you need to make sure that those networks are routable to the world or routable to your corporate network or what have you, instead of having to inject those as static routes into your routing environment, this just automatically advertises them for you. So
very cool.
Yeah. Let's see, just a couple other things. I'll mention again, a couple of releases ago, we fully integrated the Neutron DNS integration. Kind of integrates with Designate. You get Neutron basically handling the project or tenant network DNS, and Designate handling the front end. So your www.mydomain.com stuff. So that's pretty slick.
Could I use that Designate charm like in a replacement for Bind on my own network?
Yeah, it actually leverages Bind. So it uses Bind as a back end, but Designate basically is your OpenStack API front end to Bind, if you will, and allows you to automatically update records as you go along. So really, really fast movement, right? You can imagine, having an orchestration tool that could recognize that you're switching from one cloud to another or one unit to another and make those DNS record updates automatically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just a couple other things I'll just mention is that I think Corey mentioned Ceph Mimic is supported in the current version of Charms. And we also support the Blue Store mechanism for storage with Ceph. And again, I'll just point
on that one. What's the Blue Store? Is that?
It's a more efficient back-end storage method.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm not a huge expert on this. I'm not going to show my ignorance. But it's definitely, I think people are very interested in that feature. So.
Well, yeah, no. If you're using Ceph and Anger, more efficient Ceph sounds like a good thing. So
exactly.
That's good.
Exactly.
Cool. So let me ask you guys then, what's next? You mentioned in November, big Python 3 cutoffs. What else is on the roadmap for November we should be looking forward to or trying out?
Yeah, I think I know that we are doing more Cells v2 work. That is always kind of an incremental improvement, as I think it is in the upstream OpenStack itself.
I guess I should call out the November one would be like the maintenance release of Rocky.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. It's maybe not the most exciting thing in the world.
So it's not. Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's just a maintenance release. So we
will have full Cosmic support.
Come on, get excited about bug fixes.
That's right. Yes, yeah. The Python 3 changes will be the most probably dramatic thing that changes underneath there.
Awesome.
Corey, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's really cool, and we're excited that this goes on for everyone. Who's dealing in OpenStack. Have seen the upgrades and stuff in flight with the charms. It's really awesome the amount of work you guys have put in to make that stuff smooth. And folks that are doing charming, I always, whenever people are asking me like, hey, what's a good example of something to charm with or whatnot, I know I often point them at your guys' stuff because you guys have some of the most thorough, like leveraging actions really intelligently, being really item potent and stuff and hook executions and things and just doing a lot of smart work in there. So thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
I salute you. Cool. Well, anything else they want to brag about or chat about before we go? All right. Then in that case, thank you everyone for this Juju show, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks.